The window broke at precisely 2:47 a.m. this morning. It wasn't caused by wind or an object accidentally falling. This was intentional, planned. The noise of someone striking the sliding glass door on my rear patio with a crowbar. I know it was a crowbar because I discovered it afterward resting on the kitchen floor like an admission. I sat upright in bed and listened carefully. Two voices. One was my daughter's. The other belonged to her husband. They spoke softly. Yet in the quiet of a house at rest, soft voices travel like thunder. "Just take the documents from his study," my daughter said. "We only need the originals." I stayed still. I didn't speak or call out. I remained there in the darkness, 71 years old, hearing my own child break into my house to rob me. And the oddest part? I wasn't shocked. I had been expecting this moment. My name is Arthur Caldwell. I grew up in a mining town in eastern Kentucky. The sort of place where you either entered the mines or you departed. I departed. I was 16 when I hitchhiked to Louisville with $40 and a duffel bag containing clothes that didn't fit properly. I slept in a church parking lot for the first 3 nights until the minister noticed me and allowed me to stay in the basement in return for cleaning duties. I scrubbed floors, washed bathrooms, repaired dripping pipes. I learned that no task is too lowly if it keeps you going. By 20, I was employed in construction. By 25, I obtained my contractor's license. By 30, I founded Caldwell Construction with one second-hand bulldozer and a loan that caused the bank manager to chuckle when I signed the papers. He wasn't chuckling 10 years later when I repaid it ahead of schedule and established my second office. I constructed strip malls, medical centers, retirement homes, and schools. I built nearly half the commercial properties in 3 counties. Not because I was more intelligent than others, but because I appeared every single day and I never took shortcuts. Never once. My good name was my base, stronger than any concrete I ever laid. I married Helen when I was 26. She was a kindergarten teacher with a laugh that could light up a room and a determination that equaled mine. We had 2 children, Grace, the elder, and my son, Thomas. We raised them in a comfortable home. Perhaps too comfortable. I provided them with what I never received: private education, summer programs, vehicles on their 16th birthdays, and full college tuition. I believed I was creating their future. Instead, I was only creating their sense of entitlement. Helen died 4 years ago. Pancreatic cancer, 8 weeks from diagnosis to burial. She left so quickly I scarcely had time to grasp it before I stood in the graveyard, watching them lower the only woman I ever loved into the earth. After her passing, the house became silent, excessively silent. I continued operating the business because that was all I knew, but the satisfaction had vanished. I was simply performing routines. Thomas, my son, was always the reliable one. He worked at a bank in the city, led a simple life, had a solid wife, and 2 children. He never requested anything from me, never anticipated anything. He would visit on Saturdays, cut the grass, sit on the porch with me, and sip iced tea with few words. We didn't require conversation. We understood one another. Grace was different. Grace was ambitious. Not the sort of ambition I had at 16, the kind that drives hard work. Grace was ambitious in the way people become when they feel the world is indebted to them. She married a man named Victor Harmon. Victor described himself as a financial advisor. In reality, he was someone skilled at making figures shift so you wouldn't notice your money disappearing. He had a firm grip, a custom suit, and a smile that never fully reached his eyes. Helen never trusted him. She told me once, "Arthur, that man views our family the way a builder views a site scheduled for demolition." I should have paid attention. For years, everything appeared normal on the surface. Grace and Victor attended holiday meals. They brought their daughter, my granddaughter Lily, who is now 12 and the joy of my life. We performed the parts of a content family, but after Helen died, the fractures began to appear. It started with minor comments. Grace inquiring about the current value of the company. Victor offering to examine my investments as a courtesy. Grace casually suggesting that I should consider what will happen to the business when you ease up, Dad. When I ease up, as though 70 marked the end. As though 4.5 decades of creating a company meant nothing because my hair had grayed. Then the inquiries became more pointed. Did I have a plan for succession? Had I revised my will since Mom died? Did I realize that most family businesses collapse in the second generation because the creator refuses to release control? That final remark came from Victor, offered during Thanksgiving supper with a slice of pumpkin pie before him, as casually as commenting on the food. I dismissed it. I convinced myself they were merely worried, simply preparing for the future, simply being sensible. I was mistaken. The reality struck me like a demolition ball 6 months ago. I had driven to my office on a Saturday to handle some documents. I wasn't expected to be there. No one was. But when I entered the parking area, I noticed Victor's Mercedes positioned near the rear entrance. That seemed unusual. Victor had no reason to be at my firm on a Saturday or any other day. I entered quietly through the side entrance. The structure was dark except for illumination from the conference room upstairs. I ascended the steps carefully, my knees protesting with each movement, and I overheard voices. Grace was present. Victor was present. And a third voice I didn't recognize. A woman speaking in the sharp, assured manner of someone who performs this professionally. The secret is creating a record of mental deterioration, the woman stated. Missed meetings, repeated inquiries, uncertainty regarding finances. Once we obtain 3 or 4 recorded examples, we submit for conservatorship. The court names a guardian, typically a relative, and authority over all assets shifts right away. How much time does that require? That was Victor. With appropriate medical support, 60 to 90 days. And he can't resist it? Grace asked. My daughter. My firstborn. The young girl I once carried on my shoulders at the county fair. He can attempt it, but once the request is submitted, a temporary guardian is named while it proceeds. That freezes his access to his own finances. He can't dispose of assets, can't make significant choices, can't even alter his will. In effect, he becomes a legal minor. Victor repeated it deliberately, enjoying the words. And afterward? Then you dispose of the company? I already have a purchaser lined up, a large corporation. They've been purchasing local builders throughout the Midwest. They'll offer a premium for a solid name with Caldwell's standing. I remained in that dim corridor and sensed my heart pounding so forcefully I feared they might detect it. My hands trembled, not from fright, from fury. A fury so profound and ancient it seemed to rise from the coal veins back in Kentucky. From every surface I ever cleaned, every timber I ever raised, every restless night I spent constructing something genuine. They intended to label me incapable. They planned to confine me, approve documents above me, and auction everything I created to the top offer. My own daughter. I exited the structure without a noise. I sat in my truck in the lot and gazed at the steering wheel for 20 minutes. Then I drove home, poured a glass of bourbon, and began preparing. The first call I made was to my attorney, Ed Brennan. Not some business lawyer. Ed was a courtroom fighter, a 73-year-old warrior who had endured 2 divorces, a threat of being disbarred, and a struggle with throat cancer and emerged stronger from each. I shared the full story. Arthur, he said after a lengthy silence, you must realize this. This isn't a family dispute. This is an aggressive acquisition employing the legal process as a tool. And if we don't act swiftly, they will defeat you. So we acted swiftly. First, undergo assessments. I want 3 separate neurological tests from physicians with no ties to your relatives. We require solid proof that your mind is clear. My mind is clear. I know that. Now, we need a judge to recognize it. I completed those assessments the next week. 3 different specialists. Extensive testing. Recall, logic, decision-making, mental performance. Every outcome was identical. Arthur Caldwell displays no evidence of mental decline. His intellectual sharpness matches that of a capable person many years younger. I stored those documents in a secure location that only Ed and I knew about. The next step was contacting Frank DeLuca. Frank and I had been close since the beginning. He started as a plumber, became a property developer, and grew into one of the richest men in the state. More crucially, Frank was faithful. Faithful in the manner of men who have faced difficulties side by side. I explained the situation. "You require supporters," Frank stated right away. "Individuals on your side who can confirm you're alert, that you're capable, that no one is overpowering you. I also need someone watching my firm. Victor has already been in the building. I don't know his activities. Then allow me to reach out." Frank did far more than reach out. He involved a forensic accountant, a woman named Patricia Reeves, who had worked 20 years at the FBI examining financial crimes before entering private practice. I granted her full access, every bank record, every ledger, every agreement, and I gave her one instruction: trace the funds. Wherever they lead, whatever appears, I want the details. What Patricia uncovered disgusted me. Grace and Victor had been draining me for 3 years, not straight from the construction firm. They were more clever. They had been entering my personal investment holdings. Victor, leveraging his role as my financial advisor, had been executing deals, shifting funds between accounts, establishing charges and fees that flowed directly to a separate company listed under Victor's brother's name. Modest sums initially, $5,000 here, $10,000 there. Always presented as service fees, consultation costs, adjustment expenses. Over 3 years, they had taken almost $780,000. $780,000. Funds I gained by laying foundations in January, laboring through August heat, working weekends while my rivals played golf. Taken by a man who greeted me with a handshake every Sunday at supper and addressed me as Dad. But that wasn't the lowest point. Patricia also learned that Victor had been communicating with Ashford National Builders, the firm eager to purchase Caldwell Construction. Messages dating back 18 months, initial estimates, preliminary purchase conditions. They had already settled on a figure: $14.2 million for the entire enterprise. The strategy was straightforward: secure the conservatorship, obtain legal authority, sell the firm, divide the proceeds, and leave me in some institution viewing television while they profited from my lifetime of effort. When I viewed those messages, I sat in my office and wept for the first time since Helen's service. Not over the funds, but over the disloyalty, because my daughter had sat opposite me at Christmas supper, held my hand, and declared she loved me while her husband arranged the sale of everything I possessed. For 2 months, I remained silent. I attended Sunday meals. I permitted Victor to inspect my holdings. I smiled when Grace advised me to consider retirement. I performed the part of the trusting elderly man flawlessly. But privately, I was constructing my defense the same way I construct my structures. One support at a time. Sturdy, straight, indestructible. Ed revised my will. The previous version was discarded. The new one was precise, thorough, and unforgiving. Any relative who tried to question my capability would be automatically excluded from inheritance. Every cent, no exceptions. I established an unbreakable trust for the company. 7 directors, all selected personally. Veteran staff, Frank, Ed, individuals whose faithfulness I had gained over many years. To sell the company required full agreement from all 7. Victor could submit whatever conservatorship documents he wished. It wouldn't change anything. The firm was secured in a container he couldn't open. I also silently updated all my access codes, every financial holding, every message account, every network. Victor's entry was canceled without alert. He wouldn't discover it until he attempted to enter. and by then it would be irreversible. Then I replaced the locks on my residence. Fresh bolts, fresh alarm setup, cameras at every entry, every opening, capturing footage around the clock. Because I understood what would follow. I had constructed things my whole existence. I understood bases, and I understood that when you remove the base from beneath someone who believed they stood on firm terrain, they don't discuss. They strike. The evening I decided to disclose everything was deliberate. I asked Grace and Victor to dinner on a Wednesday. Just us three. I informed them I wished to talk about my retirement intentions, that I had been reflecting on reducing my role in the company, that I sought their thoughts. Grace practically glided through the entrance. She was radiant. Victor carried a costly bottle of wine, the type you bring when you believe you're about to finalize an agreement. I prepared Helen's pot roast dish. We sat at the dining table, the identical table where we had marked birthdays and celebrations for 20 years. We discussed the climate, about Lily's soccer squad, about a journey Grace hoped to make to Italy. Ordinary topics, family topics. After the sweet course, I placed my coffee mug down and regarded them both. I know what you've been attempting. 4 words. The room turned icy. Victor smiled. The automatic response of a man who deceives others professionally. What are you referring to, Arthur? I opened a folder I had positioned beneath my seat before their arrival. Banking records, the company registrations, Patricia's investigation summary, Victor's messages with Ashford National Builders, images of the conservatorship meeting with the woman whose name proved to be Dr. Sandra Kelp, a psychologist who focused on senior capability cases and who, it emerged, had surrendered her license in another state for altering assessments. I placed it all on the table, item by item, like distributing cards. Grace's face paled. She gazed at the documents as though they might ignite. Dad, this is... I can clarify. You can't, I replied, because I was positioned in the corridor when you planned it. I heard every sentence. The conservatorship, the sale, the purchaser, all of it. Victor's smile vanished. His jaw tightened. Arthur, whatever you believe you overheard, $780,000. That's the amount you took from me. Through fabricated fees, invisible commissions, and a company listed to your brother. It's all detailed in that summary. Patricia Reeves, former FBI forensic accountant. You may attempt to contest it, but I advise against it. Grace began weeping. Not the soft tears of regret, the loud, frantic weeping of someone who suddenly realized their support had vanished. I've already revised my will, I went on. I've secured the company in an unbreakable trust. You no longer have entry to my holdings, and everything in that folder has been duplicated and delivered to my lawyer. If you attempt to submit for conservatorship, these materials go to the prosecutor. If you attempt to dispute my will, these materials become public. If you approach my company, my residence, or my holdings again, I will pursue criminal accusations for deception and theft. Victor rose. His seat dragged across the floor. You can't do this. We're your family. You ceased being my family the day you began viewing me as a target. Leave my house. Grace was weeping heavily. Dad, please, just allow us an opportunity to correct this. You had 3 years to correct this. Every Sunday meal was an opportunity. Every time you met my gaze and said you loved me while your husband took my money, you had 1,000 opportunities. They departed. Victor shut the front door with such force the frame split. I heard their vehicle speed away from the drive, and then quiet. The type of quiet that descends on a house when something essential has shifted and cannot revert. I believed that would conclude matters. I was mistaken. 2 weeks afterward, at 2:47 a.m., they returned. Not via the front entrance this time, via the rear patio, with a crowbar. But what Grace and Victor failed to realize was that Frank DeLuca had been staying in my spare room for 10 days. Ed had suggested it. When trapped creatures grow frantic, they take frantic actions, he said. Don't stay isolated. Frank was already alert when the glass shattered. He slept lightly. Had since Vietnam. He appeared in my bedroom entrance fully clothed, composed as someone reviewing the daily news. Stay here, he said. I already contacted the police. Let's observe their actions. We stood at the head of the stairs and listened. I could hear Grace searching through my study on the ground level, drawers sliding, documents being moved. Victor muttered curses quietly. They're not here, Grace whispered sharply. He relocated them. Examine the safe. I don't know the code. Then we remove the entire safe. That was the moment I activated the corridor light and descended the stairs. Frank followed me. And behind Frank was the gentle light of his phone screen capturing it all. Grace stiffened when she noticed me. She held a pile of folders, my private documents, tax records, property titles. Victor knelt beside my small office safe, attempting to force it open with the crowbar. Place them down, I said. Grace's hands shook. She laid the folders on the desk. Victor rose gradually. The crowbar remained in his grip. Mr. Harmon, Frank stated from behind me, his tone even and firm. I strongly advise you to drop that before you face additional charges for assault on top of the unlawful entry you've already performed. Victor glanced at Frank, then at me, then at the crowbar. He released it. Dad, we only required, Grace began. You required nothing. You desired everything. There's a distinction. Sirens. Approaching. Blue and red flashes illuminating the walls through the shattered patio door. 2 police officers reached us within minutes. The security recordings had documented everything. Grace and Victor were taken into custody. Unlawful entry, attempted robbery, property damage. I stood on my porch and watched them place my daughter in the rear of a squad car. She wept, pleading with me to inform the officers it was a mistake. It wasn't a mistake. It was the natural outcome of 3 years of greed. I didn't rest for the remainder of that night. I sat in my study surrounded by the disordered documents Grace had removed from the drawers, and I gazed at a picture on the wall. Helen and me on our wedding day. Both of us so youthful. Both of us so confident that love would suffice to keep everything intact. The following days were harsh. I pursued the accusations. The information reached the press. Local builder's daughter detained for entering father's residence. Financial advisor's son-in-law confronts theft probe. The account circulated quickly in our community. Everyone recognized the Caldwell name. Everyone formed a view. Thomas visited me the morning following the detention. He sat opposite me at the kitchen table with a mug of coffee he left untouched. Are you all right? He inquired. No. What do you require? I require my daughter to not have become who she became. He stayed silent for a while. She has been phoning me, weeping, claiming you're ruining the family. What's your opinion? Thomas regarded me with those steady eyes. So similar to his mother's. I think you created everything we possess, and I think anyone who attempts to steal it from you deserves the consequences. But I also think she's my sister, and part of me hopes there's something redeemable in her. There may be, but she must discover it on her own. I can't do it for her. The court proceedings advanced. Victor's lawyer employed every tactic. He claimed I had lured them, that I had encouraged the break-in by restricting their finances, that my conduct indicated paranoia typical of beginning dementia. Ed countered every claim. The neurological assessments were presented as proof. 3 physicians, 3 clear findings. The judge showed little interest in Victor's idea. Patricia's investigation summary was crushing. The FBI-trained accountant had recorded every movement, every invented fee, every hidden transfer. Victor's personal messages provided the concluding evidence. The prosecutor's office included wire fraud among the accusations. Grace's lawyer approached me with a proposed agreement. Grace would admit guilt to minor trespassing. She would repay her portion of the taken money. She would accept only monitored visits. In return, I would withdraw the serious charges. "What's your decision?" Ed asked me. I looked out the window toward Helen's rose garden. "I want my daughter returned," I said, "but not this version of her. If she admits guilt, if she acknowledges her actions, if she accepts therapy, I'll think about it." She accepted everything. In court, Grace stood before the judge and confessed that she had joined a plan to deceive her father, that she had deliberately permitted her husband to take from me, that she had plotted to have me ruled incapable. Her voice faltered 3 times during the statement. I sat in the rear of the courtroom. I didn't turn aside. I owed her that much. To observe what her decisions had taken from her. Victor received no agreement. He faced trial and was defeated. Wire fraud, theft, attempted conservatorship deception. The judge gave him 4 years. Standing there in his custom suit hearing the decision, he no longer appeared in command. He looked like what he had always been, a thief in fine attire. Grace submitted divorce papers that same week. She relocated to a modest apartment on the east side of town with Lily. She obtained employment as an office supervisor at a dental clinic, the first genuine job she'd held in 15 years. She didn't request money from me. She didn't request anything. 2 months went by before she phoned. "Can I visit you?" she asked. Her voice sounded altered, quieter, weary, but also something additional, something truthful. "Yes." She arrived on a Sunday afternoon. She appeared older, slimmer, no luxury attire, simply jeans and a sweater. She sat on the same porch where Helen and I once watched storms move across the valley. "I won't offer justifications," she said. "I did what I did. I understood it was incorrect, and I proceeded anyway." "Why?" She gazed at the trees for an extended period. "Because after Mom passed, I was frightened. Not of losing you, of losing the stability, the funds, the backup. Mom always made me feel everything would be fine, and when she left, I became scared. And Victor noticed that fear, and he exploited it. He convinced me we had to safeguard ourselves, that you were aging, that anything might occur, and I accepted it because I chose to. You could have spoken with me." "I know, but I felt embarrassed about being scared. And then, once we began that route, each step made the following one simpler. That's the nature of deceit. It accumulates. One falsehood leads to another. And suddenly you're standing in your father's study at 3 o'clock in the morning clutching his documents, and you no longer recognize who you are." Her eyes welled with tears. Genuine tears this time. I could distinguish now. "I am sorry, Dad. I know that doesn't repair anything. I know I can't reverse what I did. But I need you to understand that I am sorry." I remained quiet for some time. I simply sat there hearing the birds, sensing the afternoon sunlight on my skin, reflecting on Helen, about what she would choose. "Your mother always trusted that people could improve," I said at last. "She trusted it more than I ever could. I'm an elderly man. I construct things from concrete and steel because those materials are reliable. People aren't. I know, but I'm prepared to attempt it. Not to return to how things were, that's finished, but perhaps to create something fresh, something more truthful." She nodded. She wept softly. "Lily misses you," she said. "I miss her as well. Tell her she can visit anytime she wishes. The door is always open." And I meant it. The door was open. Fresh locks, fresh alarm system with cameras operating, but open. Thomas and I shared dinner that evening. He brought his wife and the children. We grilled steaks in the backyard. The grandchildren dashed about pursuing fireflies. It felt nearly ordinary, nearly like the family we once were, but with vacant seats that reminded us of what had vanished. "You made the correct choice," Thomas told me as we tidied up. "Then why doesn't it feel correct?" Because making the correct choice and feeling positive about it aren't identical. You taught me that. Did I? Every time you rose at 4 a.m. to lay concrete in the rain. Every time you dismissed someone who was taking shortcuts even though it lost you a contract. Every time you selected the difficult path because it was the proper path. I looked at my son and saw something I needed to witness. I saw evidence that I hadn't failed completely, that something I had sown had grown properly. A month afterward, I received a note from Lily, written on notebook paper with purple ink and a sticker of a cat in the corner. Dear Grandpa, Mom says you and her had a serious argument, but you're attempting to resolve it. I don't comprehend all that occurred, but I know that you are a kind person, and I love you. Can I visit on Saturday? I want to learn how to construct a birdhouse. Love, Lily. I read that note 4 times. Then I went to the garage and began preparing lumber. Saturday morning. Lily arrived with hair the color of sawdust tied in a ponytail, and a resolve in her eyes that recalled Helen so strongly it caused my heart to tighten. Ready? I asked. Ready. We constructed a birdhouse together. I demonstrated how to measure twice, cut once, how to smooth the sides so they're even, how to hammer a nail properly. She was attentive, cautious, patient. She didn't fuss when she bent a nail. She simply removed it and attempted once more. Grandpa, she said while we applied blue paint, are you going to be all right? I'm going to be perfectly fine. Promise? Promise. She suspended the birdhouse in the oak tree in my front yard. We stood there, observing it. 2 Caldwells, 71 and 12, and I experienced something I hadn't felt in quite some time. Hope. Not the innocent hope of a young person who believes everything will resolve. The experienced hope of an elderly man who understands that some things shatter and cannot be repaired, but other things, fresh things, can still be created. Today I'm seated in my study. The company is steady. We recently secured a contract for a new medical facility that will occupy us for 2 years. The trust is protected. The directors are capable. Thomas has begun joining sessions, studying the business from the basics, the way I always hoped his sister would have. Grace and I share a meal once a month. It's cautious. It's reserved. We don't discuss what occurred. We discuss Lily, the climate, about minor secure topics. We are reconstructing, but gradually, the way one reconstructs following a tempest. You inspect the base first. You confirm it's firm before erecting walls. Some evenings I still sit on the porch and speak with Helen. I tell her about the grandchildren, about the company, about the oak tree with the blue birdhouse. I tell her about Grace and about the lengthy, difficult path we're traveling. I tell her I'm sorry I couldn't maintain the family united the way she did. And in the quiet that follows, I believe I can hear her voice, kind and determined as ever, saying, "You did your best, Arthur. That's all any of us can do." I want to share one thing with you, whoever is hearing this. If you are elderly and someone informs you that your time has ended, that you no longer count, that you should withdraw and allow others to claim what you created, look them directly and refuse. Say it steadily. Say it strongly. And believe it. Because your age is not a flaw. It is evidence that you endured. Every gray hair, every sore joint, every mark you bear is testimony that you appeared day after day, year after year, and you did not surrender. Nobody has the right to remove that from you. Not your children, not their attorneys, not any court anywhere. Your self-respect belongs to you. It was never theirs to claim. My name is Arthur Caldwell. I am 71 years old. I constructed my company with these hands. I protected it with these hands. And I remain here, still upright, still creating. And if that isn't sufficient evidence that I've earned my position in this world, then nothing ever will be. Thanks for watching my video. Like and subscribe.